Welcome back, everyone, to Neighbors in the Network. I'm James Pinedo, your host. Today, we have a very special guest, Dustin Hurst, Senior Director of Development for the People United for Privacy Foundation. And our own Natalie Bezek has written an introduction for him that I'll read
Oh
now,
boy.
just so that
Oh
people
boy.
get a sense of who he is.
You
Dustin.
didn't tell me about this part, my man.
Oh, don't worry. It's all good stuff.
Okay, good, good, good.
So it might not be true, Dustin, but we'll find out. Dustin is a recent fundraising convert, but a longtime leader in our network. His passion for our shared mission is contagious and leading to a strong culture of philanthropy across the country. Even more, he's fun to be around. Ask him about his go-to karaoke song. So, Dustin, thank you again for joining us today.
No, she had to throw that in there. She absolutely did. Most of that was good. I'll have to send her a Christmas gift or something.
I love it. I
No,
love it. Okay.
thanks for having me. Like I said, these I've watched all the other episodes with my friends from the SPN network. This is a really valuable service. So thanks for having me, and I hope we have an interesting, fun, vibrant conversation today.
Oh, I'm sure we will, and I'm so excited for it. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background? How did you grow up, and how did this shape you?
So I was born in Idaho. I'm a fourth generation Idahoan, which actually matters a lot in local politics. It's very, very weird. Fourth generation Idahoan, born in eastern Idaho, where they grow all the potatoes, where they, just north of where they made Napoleon Dynamite. I moved around. My dad was a manager for JCPenney. So between zero birth and 18, I moved 9 times between Utah, Montana, Wyoming. Very strong LDS background. I was a Boy Scout, super Boy Scout. Like I got probably too far into it. And that actually, Boy Scouts is what shaped my values, my beliefs about the world, instilled belief in the American experiment in me. Played high school football, went to North Idaho College, to junior college there, graduated Boise State, just with a degree in communications and political science, because I was like, well, I need a degree. Well, I'll pick the easiest one. So that's what I did. And then I went on, got a job with the Idaho Freedom Foundation as a reporter. Loved that. Just absolutely loved digging into government spending, misdeeds. Took a job doing that with the Franklin Center back when it was watchdog.org and doing that project. That was amazing, an amazing experience. I followed around John Tester on the campaign trail. One of the highlights of my career, early career, I got sent to Milwaukee, Wisconsin to cover Governor Scott Walker's recall. There was a rally with former President Bill Clinton and Tom Barrett, who was the mayor, I think the mayor of Milwaukee at the time. And there were 3,000 irate union members in this park. And there was one guy, one counter protester with a 15-foot tall sign. I got right in the middle of it and caught video that eventually made Fox News. It was amazing. Just wild experience. Because like I was from Idaho. Like there's no alternative party here, right? Like there's none of that back and forth. So that was fun. Then I came back to IFF and started doing their comms work. Eventually got good at fundraising too, and love to talk about that down the road, but we'll get there. And then made VP, jumped to People United for Privacy Foundation as a fundraiser because it's actually kind of where my heart is, and I'm here, and I love this network. I love the people in it, and I don't know. I'm just happy to be here.
I'm happy to be chatting with you. Tell me more though about, you said you were too passionate about the Boy Scouts. Is that how you put it? Is that how
Dude,
you put it?
I was like, those movies where they make fun of Boy Scouts for like who are like really big dorks about it.
Yeah.
Like I was a really big dork, like Eagle Scout. I went beyond Eagle Scout to getting what are called palms, which is like you're getting beyond the required number of merit badges. Now I didn't get all, I think there's 144, but I was definitely too far in it. Like I wore my uniform religiously. Like I thought it was the coolest thing. And it was like there's some things about scouting I don't love anymore. But like I think as we look at culture and as we look at how, like I have kids now, one of them is Boy Scout age. I don't know if we're going to do scouts or not with him or whatever. But I think we look at culture and everybody says, what's wrong with America and what's wrong with how we're raising our youth, right? I think it's because, and a lot of people sense this, our institutions are crumbling or we're just not interested in them anymore. Boy Scouts is so formative in that it teaches you honor, respect, integrity, It teaches you all the outdoor skills. There's now that scouting is not a thing for many kids, like it's no longer this, like we're missing something with these kids. Like, and was it perfect? No, but like it taught me to respect my elders. It
Mm.
taught me order and structure. It taught me leadership because I was super scout dork guy.
Mm.
Um, I was always like leader, like organizing meetings and calling adults to like I was in it. And those same opportunities don't seem to exist. Now, sports, plays a vital role or whatever, but I don't think they provide the same leadership opportunities and
Mm.
growth opportunities that maybe scouts did. And it's kind of a sad thing.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like what you were able to do is really be a part of the adult world through Boy Scouts. Like it felt like did it feel like you were part of something bigger outside of yourself almost?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good way to phrase that. It gave me opportunities to act like an adult and do
Yeah.
adult things. I mean, how often do we, organize meetings or, fundraise for things or go to events and network and stuff like that before I was an adult? So I had the adult mentors watching over and teaching and guiding, all while trying to be a good human, as
Mm.
because that's part of the process. I mean, the
Hmm.
Scout Oath and the Scout Law teach to be a good human. That's a really good way to phrase that. Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was never a part of Boy Scouts growing up. I had a lot of friends that were, I think my friends that you are could meet the description of Boy Scout dork that I used to love, hearing about this thing and then saying, I'm glad I don't have to do all those things because that's a lot of work. But it did seem like the best guys, the most honorable and the ones who were really trying to be conscientious about life at a young age were often the Boy Scout dorks or things like that. So I do think there is a pattern there. And you see that then you mentioned about how institutions are crumbling now. And I immediately think about that to the crisis of meaning, where you kind of found a lot of meaning in the Boy Scouts. And kids these days don't have that same sort of luxury, it seems.
I'll say this. There is, at one point in my scouting life, I went camping once a month for like 36 months straight. Like it was a thing, right?
Wow.
And like I can't remember the last time, and this is a failure as a parent. Like I think I went camping with my family one time last summer, and kids today, and again, everybody has opinions on how to raise kids, and there's
Sure.
no one right way to do it. But like it seems like, and John Haidt, and I think we're going to talk about this too. John Haidt writes about how kids today are actually just zombies, freaking
Mhm.
spending time on TV and social media and doing TikTok dances and stuff like that. That's not great. I wish we could revert back to going to, my favorite campouts were the ones where um, we it was snowing or raining and we just had to hurry up and throw up the tent and like just find a way to make a fire, and like it was the worst conditions, but we had the most fun and we did it together, as a shared unit, as a group, caring for one another. And I just don't, again, those opportunities don't exist. Like you cannot simulate that in the metaverse or on TikTok or on
Mm.
Instagram. And getting out of the city, getting away from all the stuff that we deal with is so healthy. And I think that I just think that those opportunities are just so important. And now that I say it out loud, I'm going to do more with my son and with my kids.
What I hear, Dustin, is you've inspired yourself to bring about a little more suffering in your kid's life. Little
Well, and
kid.
in my life too. I mean, camping is like, okay, well, Dad, fill the truck, and and they'll help, of course, but then we have to air out the tent when we're done or whatever. But yes, you're exactly right, actually, and I think we can all agree, suffering is at some level is good for kids. I mean, I remember 2 days at football camp in high school where I suffered, but it ultimately paid off. And I think that as we have become this very comfortable culture, kids are the victims of that. They
Mm.
no longer have to suffer. They have iPhones, and I mean, I have a relative who their daughter drives a $60,000 Jeep, which is
Mm.
unbelievable to me. I think that suffering is absolutely essential to forming good character.
Hmm. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I don't. I can't speak to the specifics of how it forms character, but I can say you remembered that that like the suffering of that camping experience. You know, like that stood out. You probably
Yeah.
wouldn't remember it as well if everything was easy, right?
Yeah.
So there's something about easiness that makes it kind of passing, transitory, not as notable. I think that I'm also a bit of a nerd as well. What I think about immediately is comparing the classic Star Wars, where Luke just gets beat up over and over and over again, to the new Star Wars trilogy, where Rey kind of just wins like all the
Yeah.
time. It seems
Yeah.
like the suffering is gone. It's not just kids, but it's
Yeah.
our whole society.
Yeah. No, and I will say this just to give everyone to assuage or allay concerns that I'm not doing that for my kids. Like my son, my 11-year-old, we're going to the gym. Like I
Mm,
love the gym because that's a place where you have to suffer. It's literally you can learn the order of life in the gym,
mm,
which is you have to work little by little at important things every single day, or at least on a regular schedule. And it hurts and it sucks and you don't want to do it. But once you show up and once you're there, working and working, eventually down the road, you'll see success. I mean, so much
mm.
of our culture is built on the idea of I can have whatever I want. I mean, how often do we DoorDash and we have food like that? My kids are astonished. Like we ordered something from not Amazon. I don't remember where it was. They were astonished that it was going to take a week and a half to arrive. I was like, oh gosh, like my wife once told me that she's like, we should get a VCR and make our kids watch movies on the VCR
Oh, I
so
like
that they
that.
understand the pain that we had to go through. Like we as parents, we have to be very intentional about how we instill those things in our kids because if we don't, they are not going to be provided by society at all. No
Right,
way. It's just not going to happen.
right, right. Okay. Well, we've had a meeting of the minds on that, but let's go back to you. Tell me more about your a Boy Scout dork and you're growing up and you're seeing like, did you see an interest? Like, what grasps your interest early on in high school and college? Did you see public policy or politics? You said you started as a reporter, so maybe it wasn't that. What was it like?
So honestly, what really caught my eye with politics, and I think a lot of people felt this way, is I wasn't really political in high school. Like I didn't do any of the. I was in student government just because like my mom was like, "Oh, you get snacks or something." I was like, "Okay, cool, whatever." Um, Seriously, that was it. But then I started junior college and I started listening. I was doing construction to put myself through college, and we would have the radio on every day. And I listened to Glenn Beck, right? Glenn
Mm,
Beck um, was for a long time my political spiritual animal, like
mm,
spirit animal, whatever. And I think his thoughts on politics, for good or for bad, shaped mine in that he's big on again the character of our leaders, the integrity of our leaders, and making sure that moral people are leading our country because our country does not work without moral people. And I think we're seeing a lot of that these days
mm,
is just wanting the freedoms without doing our duty to keep them and to act morally and in ways that uplift others and ourselves and stuff like that. But we'll get to that later. Um, so I just every day I just listen to his discussions about who we should be as people and then how that affects the downstream of culture and politics. And I was like, you know what? I can't sit by and let this go. So um it's interesting when I got out of college, I still a lot of people are like they know what they want to do. I did not. I then took a job at Boise State working or while I was at Boise State doing pest control. I had no idea. But then one day came where our mayor wanted to use stimulus, our mayor here in Boise wanted to use stimulus funds to build a 15 block trolley in downtown Boise. I was like, wait, no, we're not. It was like $40 million for 15 blocks. I was like, we're not doing this. So, but at the same time, Republicans in Congress here in Idaho were advocating for the return of Amtrak service to the Boise Depot and to the Boise area. And so I contacted the Idaho Freedom Foundation. I was like, this pisses me off. Like we truly are living in a uniparty system where we're looking at these antiquated ideas that are not modern. They require tons of subsidies. I'm not interested. I literally need to rage write about this.
Hmm.
So I wrote an essay about it to be published on IFF. I don't think it was ever published by IFF, but Wayne, the president there, said, he messaged me and he said, "Hey, I like your writing. We need to fix a couple things, but do you want to be a reporter and take a $10,000 pay cut to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So um, because I believed in the work. I really did.
Hmm.
And so that was really where I got started. And once I think the biggest disconnect for me, James, was like when I started as a Capitol reporter, the jarring thing for me was like I started attending meetings and learning more and growing. And I realized like the story being told by the press corps in capitals is not what actually happened in the meetings, or there was just so much that was untold, and nothing ever came from the tax point or the viewpoint of the taxpayer. Like,
Hmm.
how is this going to affect spending? How is this going to affect your wallet? Stuff like that. So that's really where I got my base. I realized like people don't know a lot of what's really going on because the
Hmm.
stories are being told from usually one angle, and there's another angle. So that was a jarring experience for me. So I tried to open that up a little bit for people.
Yeah. Yeah. You see duplicity and you want to expose it. That makes sense. But tell
Yeah.
me more, though. What was it about the IFF that you said you believed in the work and that's why you took that $10,000 pay cut? What was the work?
I think the work and taking a larger view of things is kind of what I've been talking about this entire thing is being moral, right? Is
Hmm.
it's not just, not having affairs or whatever, but it's also about um how do I explain this well? Just living in a way that other people don't have to support you. And I'm not taking a shot at people on welfare because I understand that there are emergency situations out there, but like, there are a lot of people who, I think just think that they can be supported by the system, or that we need to use the system to control other people. And I'm just like, I want to raise my family. I'm going to pay for my family. I'm going to be an upstanding citizen. I'm going to pay my taxes, which I don't necessarily love. I'm going to raise a good family and do what Americans largely used to do and just support ourselves. Like, I mean, and there's, I don't know, that's the work is the ensuring that the human experience, which is joy and blessings of liberty and all the things happen over here, but also ensuring that the beauty that comes from suffering righteously for a worthy cause does not go ignored, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Because I have found so much good in, as a father and as a man, doing the extra work that's needed to make sure
Hmm.
that my family is happy, my kids have food on the table, shoes on their feet, that, you know, I I have on the side, and we can get into this sometime, but on the side, like when I was working for IFF, I was in the early stages of my career and I had to do Uber to make ends meet.
Hmm.
Like I did Uber on the side. It was actually a really good trade. But like I remember I was resentful at times where it's like, I don't want to do this. I hate this. But then I remember it's like we have a medical bill to pay. Like it was my wife. We delivered the kid. It cost us $6,000. I was like, you know what? I love my family. I'm going to
Hmm.
do it. And the welfare state as makes things easy for people, but I think it takes away that righteous suffering that builds relationships and build love. I know that this is kind of a rant, but like the we need it all. We need the pleasure, but we also need the pain that sharpens us as human beings, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. When you're reaching for this definition of the work, the phrase that comes to mind is American Dream. And this past Thanksgiving, like many Americans, I got in an argument with an in-law about probably not like many Americans, but the argument with the in-law is the thing I shared with many Americans. I got an argument about what is the American dream. And so that term is also quite amorphous. But are my instincts right in connecting what you're saying as the work and describing it to that term of the American dream, or am I off?
No, I think that's dead on. I think my whole political philosophy is very simple. It's leave me alone and let me do my thing. I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm not going to steal from anybody. I'm not going to hurt my kids. I just want to be left alone to figure my life out by
Mm,
myself, right? And I think that is the American dream, which is I don't need a benevolent dictator in Washington, D.C. telling me how I live my life. And
mhm,
they're we're so human. We're so broken as humans, right?
mhm.
That I don't need another broken. I make enough decisions or mistakes by myself. I don't need somebody who is also broken making my choices for me. If I'm going to suffer, I want to suffer because I made that choice. And if I prosper, I want to prosper not because I've taken advantage of some system or I get some handout or I get,
Right.
some crony kickback or whatever. I want to prosper because I bled and I put in the sweat and I put in the tears to make it happen. Um,
That makes sense.
that's the American dream to me is rising or falling on the merits of us and our work. And there is room for community in there and being caught by welfare systems that may be private in nature, because I think it behooves us to help each other a lot. But what we've got is now this system where nobody can fail, um, and we all pay for it and we all suffer when we mess with, I think, what is a natural order of how things should be.
Mm. So what you saw was that you saw the institutions crumbling, our lack of meaning. You saw the American dream under attack, basically, or being redefined so that it is meaningless. And that is kind of the drive that had you take that $10,000 pay cut and you say, okay, this is some way to build this up, and you're jumping
Mhm.
into the movement there. Is that right?
Yeah, and we all know, I mean, we've all read the white papers. For example, Idaho just passed Medicaid expansion a couple years ago.
Hmm.
Now, that's great that a lot of people have access to healthcare. It's ridiculously expensive, way more than proponents said. But the other nefarious piece of this is we all know what the welfare cliff is, but I'll define it for those who don't. The idea is that as you make more money in your career, as somebody who it might be in a lower tier of income, you lose your benefits that are come with the welfare state. Well, a lot of people I know personally at least two people, and I don't talk to that many people, so that's actually a high number. I know a lot of people who have disregarded or declined promotions at work because they would lose their benefits. How is that good for anybody?
Yeah.
That means you have stunted your career so that the welfare state can take care of you. Now, I understand why people make those choices,
Sure.
but it's harmful to people's career because you wouldn't be where you're at had you stunted your career. I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at had I made a choice like that. And I think the welfare state just needs to be rethought out, to ensure that people can continue to advance and maybe
Mm.
not lose their benefits or lose them. I don't know how to deal with that, but that's a major red flag for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I had this image of you working with the IFF, also Ubering, trying to pay up for your kids, the hospital bills, which been there, know that crushing anxiety that comes with that.
Yep.
Um, so tell me though, what was it like on the other side? You say you're open for taking that suffering on. What did your
Hmm.
wife have to say about you jumping into this movement and being with the IFF and taking that pay cut?
So luckily at the time, was I married? I don't know that I wasn't married when I actually jumped to IFF, but
Hmm.
I will say this. My wife has been incredibly supportive of everything that I've done in my career because she feels the way that I feel. Like
Hmm.
I told you, she was the one who suggested that we get a VCR so that the
Hmm.
kids would have to rewind the movies and stuff like that, right? Um, and even last night, I was working on a project in Ketchum, Idaho, which is 2.5 hours away. Like I had to drive there at 5 and drove back at midnight. Like she's always been supportive of everything I've done, and she's with me, which is she understands the value of work and of labor and of that righteous worthy suffering that Jordan Peterson talks about. It's so good for our souls, and she's been with me 100%. Imagine if she's like, well, I want to have kids, but I don't want to go through the excruciating pain of carrying them or the weight of carrying them or whatever, and I don't want to go through labor, so I don't want to have kids. It's like okay, like I want kids, you want kids, you can't have kids without that. Like,
Hmm.
so she totally gets it. She's with me on this 100%.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful. Okay, well then take me from that moment working with the IFF, kind of go in a little bit more detail. You spoke about how you have a heart for fundraising, and that's what drove you to where you are now with People United for Privacy Foundation. But how did you discover it? And then what took
Yeah.
you to where you are now?
Yeah. So Um, at IFF, I started, like I said, I started as comms, and comms is fun. Comms is where the fun people go, right? Comms and Devo. But we started doing a lot of stuff, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to SPN right now because when I started as comms director, I had no idea what to do other than like, hey, tweet mean things at lawmakers or something like that. Like that was my idea, right? Not a great plan at all. But then Meredith Turney on your team and Carrie Conco, who joined later, really started to drill down and mentor me and teach me how things are to be done. Because I came out with, like I said, a communication degree, and I didn't really learn a ton because I don't know, like I'm just whatever. Um, let's be honest about the state of education anyway. But really, my schooling came from Meredith Turney and Ryan Green at Iron Light. Meredith just saw that there was this big lump of potential, I think, and
Mm.
she really put resources around me to make me be successful. And for that, like I literally owe her and SPN a lot of credit in my career because I would not know anything without them. So Ryan taught me the basics of with support from Meredith and SPN and taught me the basics of grassroots organizing. And he is a master. Ryan Green, if you don't know him, listeners out there, get to know Ryan Green, study his career and his way of thinking. He is brilliant. And I say that unreserved, brilliant. So I took the IPI model that Ryan Green developed and I started implementing it at IFF. We did Facebook ads, we put in funnels, we built a community. And then we started realizing I didn't know this wasn't my role originally, that leads to fundraising. And a lot of people think that fundraising is this big taboo topic because we're all so funny about money, right? Like everybody's just like, I don't want to fundraise because I don't want to ask people for money. I do because it's not about asking people for money. It's asking them to link arms with you on a journey of change that can literally save the world or save at least kids from getting harmed or people from getting hurt or people to prosperity. Here's one example, my favorite example, and we'll get back to the fundraising in just a second. But last year or earlier this year, before I departed IFF, I had the opportunity to invite Chloe Cole to Idaho to speak about her detransition journey. And it was amazing. I spent 2 days with her and her brother, and we ate Chick-fil-A together between meetings and stuff like that. And I just got to feel of her spirit and her passion for. There was one where the first day she was here, she'd been on a plane from 5 a.m. Eastern time, which is 3 Mountain time, all the way to like 6 o'clock Mountain time, which is 8 Eastern. She was flying all day. She was exhausted, but still, she went on stage and gave a brilliant speech about her journey. And right before, nobody knows this, but right before, she just broke down in tears. She's like, I am so tired. I can't do this. I can't.
Mm.
And her brother, like, we gave her space. We supported her, but she's like, eventually she's like, I have to. These people need to understand this journey.
Mm.
And it just touched me so deeply. And she gave an amazing speech. And the next day she met with the Senate Pro Tem, who had blocked the ban on transition surgeries in Idaho the year before. They talked for a full hour.
Wow.
The bill eventually got passed by the Senate and the House, signed by the governor. So it's that type of thing. Like fundraising is that's the end result of fundraising is groups in the network and groups that affect change having the resources to make that change happen.
Mm.
And I started with digital fundraising thanks to Ryan, but I got really good at direct mail fundraising
Mm.
at IFF to the point where it was I'm not going to share numbers, but it was unbelievable the amount that we were raising thanks to direct mail and digital. And I know that a lot of groups really struggle with digital. So I hope they listen to the Ryan Green model. But it's not about the money. Your donors are not ATMs. They're not there to just to support you and what you're doing. They're there because they want to affect change. They see a better vision for America and they want to participate.
Hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so you discovered that. You discovered this model. You discovered you're really good at mail-in drip campaigns or campaigns like that. And then what happens after that?
So then, I've been at IFF for 10 years,
Mhm.
and I was like, yeah, it's kind of the same thing over and over. You have a legislative session, you fight, then you take a break, and then you raise money for the legislative session. I was like, yeah, okay, I need something different. So at the time, Heather Lauer, the PUFPF, People United for Privacy Foundation CEO, was on the Idaho Freedom Foundation board, and she was looking for fundraising help specifically with digital and with direct mail.
Hmm.
And so we met a couple of times, and I just said, "Hey, Heather, like I I need a new challenge. I want something different. I love IFF. I still respect the work they do, but personally in my career, I just need to do something different."
Hmm.
So we met, and she hired me to do that, and the job has completely turned out to be not at all what I expected. We do some digital here, and we do some direct mail, but typically right now we're focused on foundations and individual donors because that's just where we found success, and people are starting to see the value in the work. I think people don't understand how really important donor privacy is for the work that we do. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I've spent probably 5, 6, 7 whole days on airplanes, meaning cumulatively, I've spent
Mhm.
days or maybe even weeks on airplanes this year, meeting with people and telling them about donor privacy. Um, and that's invigorating, first of all, because you get to feel of theirs, like, when you meet with a donor or an officer, a program officer, these are people who are really, really good at what they do usually.
Hmm.
And they really love the work of saving America from some of the things that threaten it.
Hmm.
And I couldn't be more in love with my job because I feed off that energy
Hmm.
that they have. And it's been amazing to just meet with people all across the country and just say, hey, the work that we do is essential because it protects the work that you do or
Hmm.
that your favorite think tank does. And if your donors are threatened or harassed into not opening up their wallets, you
Yeah.
can't do the important work that you're doing. And I want to come alongside you with that journey and make sure that, that taxes are lowered, that housing policy is reformed, that Medicaid is reformed, all these things. That donor privacy is essential to all of those things.
Hmm.
So it's been an incredible journey. And like I said, a lot of people would be annoyed. Like I was literally in Sun Valley until 9 o'clock last night. I got home at I think 1 a.m. this morning, and like I'm just like, that's amazing because I got to meet with people and feel their energy and link up with them and just move the ball forward, even if it's just an inch or two.
That's beautiful. Well, it sounds, I mean, you're just speaking to what your heart is, the linking arms with
Yeah.
development and being able to do that all over the country. It's
Well,
beautiful.
and I just want to there was one gift, and I can't give specifics, but there was one gift where um I wish I could share all the details, but look, as a development officer, getting a gift from anybody is always good. We are so grateful for the dollars that flow in to support our work because I recognize we need those dollars to make these things go and to keep really talented people on board. Um, but my favorite gifts are the ones where I get to bond with the people. Like I love finding gifts. I love finding people who literally want to link arms. Like there was one call where we ended in tears
Hmm.
over something else, like because we were just so happy to find each other. I'm not joking. Like it was an unbelievably uplifting experience to find somebody who believes in the work so much and believes in saving America so much. And I think that's an underrated experience for a depot
Hmm.
officer and something that people don't realize. Like I'm not just out there like saying, "Hey, give me money." I'm saying, "Hey, this is an invitation for you and us to work together to affect change." And um, that those experiences make it all worth it. All the cold calling, all the no's, all the rejection when you find somebody who wants to link arms with you and fight this fight that is so important, it just fills your heart. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get weepy right now. I did not expect to go here today.
Sure. Well, I completely understand that. It makes me think back to the I think we can both throw spars at higher education not all day, but there are some good professors out there, and one of them
Mhm.
that I enjoyed back in college, she taught a literature course on the Inklings, so Lewis and Tolkien and those great British literary giants. And they are really the ones, at least according to what I've been told, that popularized the saying for someone that speaks, you're talking my language. What they would say is for someone that speaks my language. Um, and really, as institutions break down, we're losing our ability to communicate, to be able to find someone that speaks our own language. And then when you see that, when you find that, it is moving, it is exciting, it is something that is otherworldly because it punctures through our normal day to day. So I 100% understand that. And I think that's exciting. So is that kind of your normal that you just go around speaking other people's, like finding someone that speaks your language and then just connecting?
Yeah, that's it. And it can take a lot of different forms. Like I actually was up in Sun Valley last week. I have so many miles on my truck now, but but we were I was with a group and I was just volunteering with a foundation up there, Health Freedom Defense Fund. And we actually just spent the afternoon stuffing envelopes because they're trying to restart their direct mail program, and I support what they do and I support who they are. And so we spent the afternoon just talking and talking strategy, but also learning about them, their dreams, their hopes for America, their hopes for their families, because that's what it all comes down to, right?
Mhm.
Is they care about the country and the state, but they also care about themselves and their own kids making it in a free society that we used to enjoy. And so just being able to connect with people and realize that again, it's about them. They have dreams, they have hopes, they have things they want to do with their lives. And big government stuff gets in the way of their realities through tax policy. If you can't afford anything, you can't dream big. You just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, you know this already because you've listened to all our past ones, but I'm new to the movement. I don't some of the things that might be not need to be explained have to be explained for me. Can you help me understand what is that distinction? Because you started off in comms and then comms had a overlap, it sounds like quite a bit with development, at least with IFF. And now you're working full time in development. What is the distinction between comms and development that help me understand like where's the overlap and how's the distinction? It might be just a silly question, but I'd love to get a clear picture.
So I mean, and I have lots of thoughts here. So we're gonna go into this. So
Great.
so of course comms does, all the strategy, the positioning stuff, working on talking points, developing one pagers with your policy team, doing, press releases, maintaining the email list, pitching reporters, which I was never good at and still am not good at. Doing all that forward facing stuff. Of course, Devo is working with donors, maintaining relationships with them, building relationships, finding new donors, doing digital fundraising, doing direct mail, pitching foundations, just that type of stuff. Um, Now, I think a lot of groups. This is where we get into Dustin's thoughts about how the world should be. The beautiful thing at IFF for the last couple of years is that we were a little bit understaffed for whatever reason. I think part of it was we couldn't find anybody because the labor market has tightened in an unbelievable way. But because of that, we had an office manager who helped out with development, but a lot of it fell on me because we just didn't have the bodies to do more. So comms was here, Devo was here, and it's a beauty. Devo and comms should work hand in hand at all time, almost all times. And they shouldn't. One of them should not drive the ship. They literally should work in tandem to build the email list so that the other one knows what's going on. Because if that doesn't happen, you miss opportunities to fundraise and to invite people onto the journey. So that's the distinction. But there should be almost intimate closeness between comms and Devo for maximum effectiveness in the network.
That's so helpful to me. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, you've spoken a little bit about an impact that you've seen there while you're going around linking arms with these people and speaking, being able to find those that speak the same language. What about a challenge? What's something that you've had to overcome now in your role with People United for Privacy?
Um, I think the biggest thing is just the main challenge of development, which is just approaching people out of the blue, whether it's cold calling them or just approaching them straight up at a meeting, at an event, and is because sometimes like I don't want to be bothered or sold all the time. That's the nature of life. Like, but there was a moment, I'm not gonna, again, I can't give details for obvious reasons, but there was a moment I was at a dinner earlier this year, and I was like, I'd already talked to the people that I knew, I'd already met at the meeting or at previous meetings or whatever, and I was like, there's a prospect here I really need to talk to, and I was just like, like, I don't know if he wants to talk to me. Like, I don't want to bother him. Like, I want to be respectful. Like, and that's a key to this is be respectful. Don't be a jerk about this because that will
Sure.
put people off. But I went up to the gentleman and I shook his hand. He had received an award that night and he'd given just a dazzling speech. And we had a really good conversation about it. Um, but that's the biggest challenge, and we're still working on building that relationship, and these things take time. That's the other thing is you have to be patient with things
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes people don't see the value of your work immediately,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to just show them over and over and over that, hey, this is making an impact. Hey, we are affecting change. So I think those are the two things is just overcoming my my personal like aversion to bothering people and being patient while stuff unfolds because it does take time.
That makes sense. So what keeps you going? What are your inspirations?
Honestly, my inspiration is just I remember a time when I lived in East Helena, Montana when I grew up. I lived there for 8 years amongst all the moves, which was nice to have some stability. I remember a time, James, where I was literally the typical millennial, which was during the summer months, I would get on my bike at like 9 or 10 in the morning after doing, chores, mowing the grass or whatever. I would ride all around East Helena, Montana. I would go to the card shop and talk baseball cards and football cards with the owner. Then I would go to A&W in East Helena and get a corn dog. And then I'd go over to my friend's house and we play Nintendo. And then we'd go somewhere else. And that is for whatever reason, whether it's public safety concerns or cultural, where we don't let our kids go outside anymore, we don't let them play, we don't give them that unstructured time. That's what I want for my kids. That's what I want for everybody's kids is to return to a society where kids can be free and safe to form their own lives and to explore and to have those magical experiences. Like there are so many times in my youth where just we were doing the stupidest things, but it was so much fun and we were just carefree. And do our kids get that anymore? I don't know. I don't know. So that's really what drives me is just giving kids the experience that I had. And
Mm.
I don't know. It maybe that's silly. I don't know, but I'm just so fond of how I grew up and how I was shaped by the freedom that was afforded to me to learn and to grow, to make mistakes, to crash my bike and
Yeah.
do whatever. And I think that's really missing from society.
Mm. I agree. I agree. At least I don't see it outside my door. What, do your kids live that way? Do they have that
As
freedom?
much as we can give them.
That's great.
My wife and I are not on the same page on this, and it's not a good. It's not a bad tension. There's a tension because like me, like I'll just hand my son $5 and say go get pop at the gas station or whatever. But we do live in a different culture and we do have to be cognizant of things. But we put our kids outside and literally there was one day where I went 8 hours. I had no idea where my daughter was, but she was safe because we've chosen to live in a mostly safe community.
Hmm.
Um, but also it's beyond that. Like there are chances to, my kids will come up to me and they'll say, Dad, we'll be at a store or at somewhere where or at the library, and they'll say, Dad, this book, needs this, or I have a question about this. And I say, well, go ask the librarian. Like just finding little ways to help my kids be free and to learn, kind of like I did in Scouts, to
Yeah.
have that structure and to act like an adult and to do adult things through their formative years is what we're trying to get.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you want to replicate that for other families all across the country.
Yeah.
That's the vision. How do we do that? How does that happen? That seems like a beautiful goal, but huge.
So Lenore Skenazy and John Haidt have written a lot about this. She was called, if you know her writing, she was called the worst mother in the world because she let her 9-year-old kid ride the subway. I think it was either in Tokyo or New York. I was stunned. I was like, I'm all about kid freedom, but like even that's a little much for me given what's going on the New York subway these days. But I think it starts, number one, everything is downstream from culture. So in the 80s, if you have studied this, part of the problem was they started putting missing posters on milk cartons. Apparently that was a thing. And so everybody started getting freaked out that their kid was going to get abducted. Like it was like a thing that was going to happen every single day because that's what we saw on the freaking milk carton, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't reality. Statistics say that, excuse me, if a kid is abducted, it's usually a family member, and the kid is usually recovered very, very quickly and put with the appropriate parent. And then if a kid is abducted by a non-family member, most of those kids are recovered. Again, that sounds weird to say it that way, but basically the long and the short of it is that yes, child kidnappings do happen. They're absolutely the worst and the most, and I feel so bad for those parents. They're the worst part of life. But statistically speaking, it's never going to happen to your kid. That's a fact. It's just not a thing. So cultural is the thing. That's first, is understanding the reality of the situation. The next is public safety, making sure that that doesn't happen and it doesn't become a thing. So there's laws. And then the third thing is, and I can't believe we need laws for this in the country, but Lenore and John have gone around the country doing what are called free range kids laws or free range
Mm.
parenting, where there have been cases where parents have let their kids go out and do whatever, and the parents get charged with neglect. That's BS. Are you kidding me? So making sure that the legal structure makes kids safe or keeps kids safe, and then keeps parents safe so that they can afford the freedom for those kids. Like there is no way it's healthy for snowplow parents to watch everything their kids do every day. Like, and like we just need to take a step back and let kids work stuff out too. Like,
Mm.
my kids will come in and they'll be crying about this or that. And Tommy said this mean thing. Work it out. You work it out. I'm not going to. Um, I don't know. There's so much to be said on this topic, but I think it's a discussion that thankfully Lenore and John Haidt are having, but it needs to be had more and more.
Absolutely. What about goals or hopes that you have there at People United for Privacy?
I mean, I want to raise $20,000 a day. No, I'm just kidding. I think the biggest thing for me is to make sure, obviously, as a Devo officer, I have numerical goals that are in my mind that I strive for every single day. But the biggest thing is to change the culture of how people think about fundraising and
Mm.
how people think about the money that groups use. So everyone says the slur of the day, and we couldn't, this interview would not be complete without talking about this. The biggest slur of the day is dark money. Everyone in the group, in the network, has been accused of being a dark money shill. Every single one of us. And if you haven't, you're not doing your job effectively, by the way. But that is the most disingenuous argument in the entire world. And what dark money means is I'm a person with power or influence or a platform, and you are doing something I don't like. And so I want to know your donor so I can harass them. That's all that means. It's complete BS. And by the way, this isn't a Democrat only thing, although they lead the chorus. Republicans in some states, there was a Democrat or a Republican senator in North Dakota who literally said, I want disclosure of donors because I need to know who my enemies are. And I was like, excuse me, what? That's not how this works. You work for us. We don't work for you. You don't get to use your power to harass us.
Mm.
So changing the culture on and the thinking on dark money, as much as, and here's been one challenge for me, which is The cool thing about People United for Privacy Foundation is we protect groups on the left, the center, and the right. Now that's hard because personally, I'm very, very conservative in the way I live my life. I don't like a lot of what the ACLU does. I don't like what a lot of, Planned Parenthood or some of these groups on the left. I don't like what they do, but I understand, and I think so many people in this network understand that they have a right to use their First Amendment rights without being harassed.
Mhm.
I do not, as much as I despise some of the things that ACLU does and Planned Parenthood, I do not want people on our side of the fence or anybody else to show up at their donors' houses and harass them, harass their kids, and threaten their safety and their well-being. That's not who we are as Americans at all. It's not a thing. And that's the end of this dark money argument, which is there's dark money, they're the donors. The donors need to be harassed by media, by activists, by the institutions or the tools of government, and then people stop giving so that people fall silent. That's not who we are. So changing that culture, and then of course we have model legislation that right now it protects 73 million Americans' donor rights. I want that to be 330 or whatever we're at. I want every American to feel safe to give and support the work that they believe in, whether they're on the right or the left, because that's who we are. And as we have this divided culture, some of the foundational principles of our society have to be reinforced so that we can have this vibrant national discussion and we can decide best who we're going to be and where we're going to go as a country.
Beautiful. When you're saying that, I'm struck by the fact that I doing social media marketing, dark money is like number one thing. Like I get so tired of seeing the term dark
Yes.
money.
Oh my
I'm just
gosh.
like, okay. But it also struck me that no one has ever used that term to describe an organization which they support the work that they're doing.
Yep.
And it's
funny how that works, huh?
Yeah. That you might not know everybody that funds your favorite organization, but they don't have any dark money. They're doing good work. Mm-hmm. Question. You can tell my frustration. How do you communicate with someone that is of that persuasion where, it could be the right or the left, right? That just doesn't want to see the First Amendment right exercised by either, by whoever side they just happen to disagree with. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two things. Number one is what you just said, which is you point out that, and you do it gently, and I'm not good at gentle, so I appreciate that there are people who are. But you point out that it's like, hey, your donors, your favorite group's donors, whether they're the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, Common Cause, they're all part of this. They all protect their donors, and their donors deserve protection. So that's number one. The other thing is, and this is something that Meredith Turney and Ryan Green have also been very good at teaching, which is those personal, and the network has been really focused on. And IPI is really good at this, like amazingly good at this. But you tell those personal stories. I'm going to tell one real quick. Back in 2000, whenever the Prop 8 stuff was going on in California, the battle over traditional marriage, gay marriage, whatever, and there are people in the network on both sides of that, and I support all of them and their opinions. I have my opinions, but again, there was a waitress. She was a Mormon LDS waitress in, I think it was LA. And she gave $100 to the pro-traditional side of the Prop 8 debate, right? And you think, oh, $100. That must be Coke money. No, like that's insane. It's like $100, like probably from her tips one day. And she's like, okay, I'm going to donate them, right? Somebody leaked that donor list and all hell broke loose. Activists started showing up at her restaurant for days and maybe even weeks on it. I don't know the full timeline, but they started, harassing her customers, calling her customers bigots, saying, the cancel culture stuff that we see every day now was like, this was kind of one of the first really cancellation incidents, right? It got so bad that California authorities had to call in riot police to stop this from happening and to restore order and protect the restaurant and the property near the restaurant. So eventually this waitress she was like, you know what? The restaurant is on the verge of losing everything because of me. I'm out. I quit. I'm done. You guys do your thing. And it wasn't like she was some sort of bigot who needed cancellation. like she had gay coworkers. She just had a different vision for what's good for the country than they did, and then others did. So I don't wish that on anyone, left or right. I don't want anybody canceled because they made $100 donation because they thought that, maybe the country should live this way. Like I said, Idaho just passed Medicaid expansion. I'm not going to show up at somebody's house and harass them, or their place of business and harass them, because they have a different view of how society should operate. It's on me and on us and everybody who participates in this arena to sell our ideas and to sell them well so that they can be widely adopted. That's our responsibility and our duty as Americans. And that's what PUFPF is trying to instill. It's a long war, it's a slow war, but restoring that belief that this national discussion is so important and we all get to participate as Americans. That's what we believe.
Beautiful. All right. Well, with that beautiful send off there, I just have one last question. Can you nominate anyone for us to interview next here on Neighbors in the Network?
Yeah, actually. Hang on, there are so many good people in this network. Let me see who I want to nominate next. Can I nominate two?
Sure, please do.
Okay. Nicholas Kleinworth at Idaho Freedom Foundation is doing really good work on Medicaid policy and healthcare policy, and doing a lot of digging on that. He's a really cool kid, young guy who just had a baby, or his wife just had their first baby, and he's one of those he's in the early stages of his career, and he is so passionate about it, and you can feel his energy for it. The other one is Holly Wetzel up at Mackinac Center. She is just fantastic. She is a communications pro, and she knows her stuff. You would learn a lot from talking with Holly. So I would suggest those two. And there's one more thing that I have to add, and I know you're the host, but I'm going to add one more thing. Natalie, thank you, Natalie, for mentioning my favorite karaoke song. For anybody who wanted an end on that, or wanted me to circle back, it's Careless Whisper. One of the best and easiest karaoke songs. We went out as a Devo group to do karaoke, and that was my song, and it was very good. Very, very fun time. So, and if anybody in the network ever wants to do karaoke at an annual meeting, I am so down. It's unbelievable how down I am. So feel free to approach me and ask to do karaoke. That'd be fun.
I love it. Okay, that sounds like a plan. And I'm going to see if I can dig up any footage of that event. That seems like something that someone probably captured.
There is footage, but I have threatened many lives to keep it buried. So.
All right, we'll let it rest. I'll just leave it into the imaginations. How about that?
There we go. That's best. Yeah, that's for the best.
Okay. Well, Dustin, I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope we get to chat more. I think there'd be so much that we could share about. So shall we get a coffee sometime soon?
I hope so. I really do.
Great. All right. Well, thanks again. And thanks you all for joining us here on Neighbors in the Network. Thanks for listening to Neighbors in the Network, an offering from the State Policy Network. We hope that this podcast can serve as a place for empathy, understanding, and human connection. Please let us know about your thoughts in the comments section. And thanks again.